All right. Well, this is my second year-end show of 2022. We did the music one last week, and this one is going to be more about pop culture and other big news stories. I have three guests on the program, and they all have different views and opinions. And I think it's a great group of guys, and it's a really fascinating discussion on a variety of topics. We don't actually cover a lot of topics, but we go in depth so much. I really enjoyed this, and I hope you guys do too. It's some serious stuff, but we also joke around and laugh a lot. It's a roller coaster. So buckle up and get ready for one of the best podcast episodes of the year for me, maybe ever. So it's coming right up. Welcome to the show. I picked you three because I went back. I've had 300 episodes of this podcast, and I was thinking of the people that I really enjoyed talking with. And I thought you guys had really good opinions, and you're all relatively sane. And I think there's a lot of craziness as we're going to talk about in the world right now. So it'll be nice to get some sane opinions. And I will let you guys introduce yourselves. Knocko, do you want to start?
Sure. How you doing? Feel really blessed to be here. Chuck, thank you so much for the invite. My name is Knocko. I'm a detective supervisor in Los Angeles. I was on the documentary people might have seen on Netflix called Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. And I'm an avid music fan. So thank you very much. Thank you so much. I love the guests that you've had on the last year, including these guys. I'm getting to know some of my heroes like Doug from King's X and Doyle from the Misfits. Greg from Bad Religion. You've had some awesome guests, so keep up the great work, brother. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Thanks. Arno?
Chuck, how you doing? Good to see you. I'm not going to make any guarantees about delivering on this whole sane thing.
Okay.
Readable, whenever I got something to say. My name is Arno Michaelis. I'm a storyteller. I tell stories mainly through speaking engagements, but also I've written a couple books. I'm a fake it till you make it filmmaker. And all of my storytelling is really done with the intention to help get people to see themselves in others and see others in themselves.
Okay. Yeah, you'll have to tell me later about you have another, or you could say now, is there a movie coming out? Does that have a date yet for it?
Well, actually, my latest film I've been involved with is a documentary called Refuge, and people can find out more about that at refugemovie.com. And Refuge is about a former member of the Ku Klux Klan and a Kurdish Muslim refugee, and the friendship and brotherhood they developed together. And I was very honored to introduce those two guys. And wow. I think the reason I really like the film is I'm only in it for about 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. Awesome. And last, but certainly not least, one of the first guests I ever had, comedian Sidney Smith. How's it going? Welcome back.
Hey, not too bad, man. Appreciate you having me on, Chuck. Was quite the surprise there to get an invite back because it's been a while. So I'm glad you let everybody out there know that I was one of the first ones, because you said 300 guests and I finally get fucking ass back. So I got a feeling I like to think if I was that great, Chuck, I'd have been invited like 200 fucking guests to go, but whatever.
Well, I don't do the group thing very often, but I'm going to try to do this more often. I'm trying to do one a month, because people loved the one I did on music last week. It was the year in rock, and people you should do stuff like this once a month. So maybe I'll do that. I'll have to think of different topics or something. Feel free to pitch me some ideas. I'm always open. So yeah, so this one, we're just going to talk about the year because it's been a crazy year in news stories. I just want to get your guys' take on some of these things. The first thing that I had on my list, Kanye West. He made a lot of headlines this year. It was very interesting. I think all the stuff that he did some anti-Semitic statements, and he lost these deals, and then he was kicked off Twitter, and then he went on the Alex Jones show, and he was praising Hitler and denying the Holocaust. To me, I was a counselor for 17 years. I look at the guy and I just see mental health issues, mental illness. He says he's not bipolar. To me, it screams bipolar. It may be something else, but to me, it seems more mental health rather than that he actually believes some of these things that he's saying. What are your guys' takes? I guess we'll start with you again, Knocko.
You know what? I don't know how much is shtick and how much of it is possible mental illness. I mean, I've seen a lot of mentally ill people through the years, but I mean, Kanye seems really sharp on some things, and then I just think he's one of those guys who just loves pushing people's buttons, getting publicity, getting attention. And as part of being an artist is being wild and crazy. You have to have that gene to want to put yourself out there and say, "Hey, look at me." And I mean, it's an interesting guy. I mean, him going on Alex Jones. I mean, hysterical. I mean, remember when Dave Mustaine from Megadeth went on there? Then Trump went on there. I mean, if you're willing to go on there, throw it all out there, hats off. But it seems like he loves the scorched earth thing, getting down with the Kardashians. I mean, hey, do what you got to do. It sucks to see the anti-Semitic thing when it pushes the wrong buttons and influences people maybe to do the wrong thing. I'm not down with that, but yeah, I get his whole creative thing of trying to stretch it out, working in the gray. I mean, in living in such a controlled setting that we nerfed and made everything super safe. It's good to see things being pushed, and it gets people out of their comfort zone. But as long as it doesn't go into the violence, so it's that push and pull of creativity. So, hey, do your thing, Kanye. As long as no one gets hurt, I'm down.
Arno?
Well, first of all, you got to hand it to him to make Alex Jones look like borderline insane. That's good.
Right?
Holy shit! I never thought I'd ever see that happen. My take on Kanye as a former neo-Nazi is I think Knocko nailed it in that I see a lot of the same vibe when I was 16 years old, and I thought it was funny to run around with swastikas and get a rise out of people. Like it's the same, but the problem is, like, when I was 16, I wasn't like a mega platformed entertainer who has a lot of influence over a shit ton of people. And it's really sad that Kanye was right is now like a mantra of present day neo-Nazis, which it is. They hung a banner over the 405 in LA shortly after his first anti-Semitic rant that said Kanye was right about the Jews. And you'll hear that throughout the whole white nationalist spectrum. They love that shit. And by all means they think that an enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I think the real world consequences of this are that Jewish people are being targeted more than they have been in a long time. And this is like the oldest hatred on the planet Earth. We're going 5,000 years running. And it's waxed and waned over the years, but Kanye has single-handedly added a big log to the fire, and there are Jewish people suffering the consequences for it all over the world. And it's in that respect, it really turns my stomach. There's a lot of ways you could push buttons and I agree, Doc. I'm all about freedom of speech. I'm all about creativity. I'm all about the reason I became a neo-Nazi when I was 16 is I like to piss people off. So like I get pissing people off like as much as anybody, and I still love to piss people off. But I nowadays I want to do it to get people out of their comfort zone and maybe think about things in a way that they hadn't before. And nowadays I'm really committed to do it in a way that brings peace and brings understanding to the world rather than strife and hatred. And when it boils down to it, that's really all Kanye accomplished.
Yeah, well said. Sidney, what do you think?
First and foremost, I want to let everyone who's listening know, and I want to let the two gentlemen I'm on know, Chuck did not let the black guy on the show know at all that he was going to be on with a neo-Nazi. So, or I should say,
former.
Or I should say, I'm sorry, former.
The former part is important, Sidney.
Yes, you absolutely are correct.
No, I wouldn't set you up like that.
But at the same token, you did not say former, neo, or Nazi. That was not included anywhere when I asked who was going to be on the show with me. But to
it
your
makes
credit,
for better television if it's.
Chuck, you and I have better television when I see you in person the next time I see you. You're gonna have some good TV.
All right.
No, kudos to you, sir, for being a former neo-Nazi. So that's awesome. I love to hear that. And who knows, maybe I should have you on my podcast to hear more about that.
You should. He's great.
Hey, Chuck,
Happy
I'm talking to him now, Chuck. All right. Be a host and get in the background, buddy. But to the point of Kanye West, I think Kanye is a perfect example of an artist who has no people around him. He got to a point where he doesn't have any. He has so much fame and so much money. He's making so much money for others that everyone wants to just say yes. Whether you be black, white, green, or red, can sit in a meeting with directors and managers and VPs from Adidas and say "Heil Hitler," and no one blinks an eye at it until they don't need you anymore, then that is a great point to show you that you were only around for the dollars that you could bring in. The one thing that people do not talk about is that Adidas has backdoored Kanye and taken all of the designs and the designers and brought them under the house of Adidas. So essentially, they don't need him anymore at all. Whether or not they can sell the shoes without him or how many they'll be able to sell, we will see. I don't know if it's so much mental illness again as it is. This is a genius of an artist in all forms of design as well as music, and there was no one around him to put the guardrails around him since his mother passed away. I put Kanye in the same vein as I put R. Kelly, though they did two very, very different things. If you want to look at people who are stars and people who are making money off of you, once there's no more money or they don't need you to make that money, you're on your own. If R. Kelly had still been writing hits, he'd still be out sexually abusing little girls to this day. But he wasn't, so he isn't. Kanye, if he was still making the music that people wanted to hear, because if you look at Kanye and you look at R. Kelly both, the one thing that has not and will not go away is the music. For all of the disdain that society says they have for them, whether it be R. Kelly again for what he did or Kanye for what he was doing, saying things about the Jews, so on and so forth. The Alex Jones, the music has not left Spotify. That music has not left Apple Music, none of that. So you are only as good as the last thing that you created and the last thing that people can make money off of. And once you have that and you've put that out and you don't have control of that, and when I say control, where you can decide who's going to make what dollars off of you, then you're kind of out there and you're going to be lost. And those people will leave you out there. I don't think it's so much of a mental illness as it is just a guy who is just a genius of an artist and just never, ever had any guardrails put around him outside of his mother. This guy, I don't know if anyone has seen it, has a Netflix documentary at which if Netflix still has it up, I haven't went back and I saw when they first dropped it. I'm not even sure if it's even out, but if it is, you have to watch it. Before this guy was even known, he was already paying a cameraman to follow him around for a number of years and document his life and his music of producing, because he knew where he would be as a superstar. The type of arrogance and belief you have to have in oneself to do that is bananas. We all do it now with a podcast because everyone has a podcast and you were told that's how you make it famous. This guy was doing this essentially before anyone was doing anything like this. So the amount of belief in yourself, you have to be off to the other side of them mentally. And when I say off to the other side mentally, I don't mean as a mental illness where they need to put you in a straitjacket, put you in a room, put you on meds. I mean, you are off kilter in your mind where no one could pull you back at all if you get too far out on that edge.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well said. Well, speaking, the next story I want to talk about was, I mean, we have to agree on this, that it is mental illness here. And people probably forget about this because there's been so much crazy stuff that's happened since. But one of the biggest stories of the year was Johnny Depp and the Amber Heard trial. I mean, there was every day a news story about something that coming out between these two people. 6 grueling months, it says in the courthouse. And I didn't even know if I realized that the true outcome of it was that, because I thought Johnny Depp won, but I think they both kind of won. They found Depp liable and Amber Heard liable, but I think Depp gets more money. He gets 10 million and Amber Heard gets 2 million. So I guess technically Depp just gets 8 million. I don't know how that works, but
anytime a woman takes you to court and she doesn't win wholeheartedly, that is not a tie. The man won.
I mean, there was just so many weird things with that one, though. Like, what was like the thing she shit in the bed? He said, then everyone started calling her Amber Turd. It's just interesting how people I feel like a lot of women too took his side and said she's crazy, justice for Johnny. And I was like, and I'm watching some of this trial. I didn't watch the whole thing, but from what I could see, they're both a little nutty, and they both were in the wrong. I don't think either one was the innocent victim in this. They both were a little nutty. But did you see it, Sidney? Do you agree with that?
What are you talking about? They were both victims. There was only one victim, and it was that one woman with all the scars and the eyeliner on, Johnny Depp. That woman, that was the one who was the victim. What are you talking about? You got this psycho chick who wants to come after your money, come after your reputation. Why? Because she has some other dick on the side, and she didn't want you to upset that other dick. So I'm taking you to court, and I'm going to say all these things. If I have to get onto my little iPhone and create blemishes, and she watched too many episodes of SVU, and she missed an episode here or there, and saw where Olivia actually catches the criminal for committing the crime. This bitch was out of her mind. Out of her mind. This was a whole, you would have thought she set this up with two 12-year-old girls in between third and fourth period, that this is what I'm going to do to get away with this. This bitch was bananas. Absolutely bananas. I've never felt sorry for a rich guy like Johnny Depp. That dude hasn't had a hit since the pirate movie either. But this chick tried to take him to the cleaners. And if he hadn't been Johnny Depp, he'd have got screwed over really good. And none of these other white women on the planet would have gave two shits about a dude in eyeliner makeup.
Well said, Knocko. I mean, as a law enforcement officer, did you see? Because wasn't there some domestic disputes? Didn't he hit her, or did I hear that wrong?
Yeah, supposedly there was some domestic things, but I don't know what was the bigger tragedy: us being bombarded with the coverage, or me as a music fan, being subjugated to him playing with Jeff Beck, who's a legendary guitarist and a member of the Yardbirds, who you had Jim McCarty on your podcast, who's the drummer for the Yardbirds. It's like, how is Johnny Depp doing his cosplay thing, and actually recorded with a legitimate artist? And why is Jeff Beck watering down his brand to have this faker on stage with him? I was like, that's mind-boggling.
Well, he played with Alice Cooper too, and he's played with some high-profile musicians.
Yeah, but I think they have his amp on one, and he just puts his makeup on, and like Sidney said, his bracelets and his hair piece and all that, and his dress, and they just have him on there for show. But it's like, come on, now he's actually recording as a legitimate artist with a Hall of Famer. It's like, come on, Jeff, come on, Johnny. That just shows where the music industry is nowadays. Anyone could jump in on it. So watered down. But yeah, as far as the domestic violence stuff, like whenever these big news things pop off, I try to distance myself, and then once it settles down, then I'll drive into it and see what the details are, see what's real, what's fake, and all that. So I mean, if bottom line is, if you get in a relationship with Johnny, I mean, you're asking for it. He's a wild and crazy guy. I remember going to the Viper Room when he owned it, and seeing, I think it was Flogging Molly band. I saw her come from the bottom up, and he was just doing some wild stuff back then. So I can imagine, as you said, as you get more and more money, and you have, like Sidney said before, you're surrounded by yes men, and there's no guardrails. You're doing everything. You're going to get away with anything. You can pay people off. The sky is the limit of debauchery. So, I mean, when you're settling down with someone like that, come on. It doesn't make it right. But
he had like a bowl of cocaine or something like that.
Was that all in? It was just a bowl? I mean, I figured we'd have a closet, I mean, a bowl is being generous.
I mean, if he has 2 or 3 bowls, who cares? We're talking about this chick who was sucking another man's dick and was trying to take this dude to the cleaners because she wasn't even smart enough not to be in the elevator. All right?
You must have followed the story more than I didn't know all this stuff about the other guy.
Yes. Told Johnny she didn't want to be with him, and she changed the locks, and all this stuff was happening. And then the same night, she's coming up in the elevator with another dude. I can't remember the guy's name. He's another actor. Okay. And all of a sudden, no. And Flogging Molly, I love that band, especially around St. Pat's Day. Used to listen to that music a lot back in Detroit.
Hell yeah.
Big Flogging Molly fan. But he's right, man.
Yeah.
1 bowl, 2, 3 bowls, who cares, dude? The story was this chick and the made up bullshit she was throwing out. Come on, Chuck. I can't be schooling you in your own podcast, bro.
Arno, did you follow this story at all?
I sure didn't. And I really was not like, I quit all social media not too long ago, except for Instagram. And the whole Amber Johnny thing, like, fucked with my octopus videos and my cat videos on Instagram and my hockey videos and my girly pictures once in a while. And I was kind of irritated by it. And beyond that, I just, I was in Hounslow, suburb of London in the UK, and I got a friend who does a Bhangra dancing class, like a Bollywood dance class, and I'm a huge Bollywood nut, and I can't dance my way out of a wet paper bag with a weed whacker. So I figured it'd be fun to go do this Bhangra class, and I was literally wiping out in my own sweat trying to do these moves and shit. And in the midst of all that, some teenage girl was like, "Are you Team Johnny or Team Amber?" And I'm like, "I'm Johnny. I'm Team Johnny." All right, I just saw Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Team Johnny sounds good to me. But beyond that, like that was all it meant to me in my life this year was it was a distraction from wiping out my own sweat at the Bhangra class.
All right. Yeah, it was definitely I'm sure there'll be a made for TV movie you can all watch or something, but
I would say, Chuck, before you go to the next one, I'll say this about Amber Heard. She wasn't hanging around with the right rich people, because the right rich people would have told her, you never sacrifice yourself. You want to make money, you stay quiet. I don't give a shit what happens. She went to sacrifice her own money, her own career to try to take this man down. And it just didn't work out. Rich people, she had been hanging out with the right rich people who have the right kind of money. She'd have never, ever, ever, ever sacrificed herself for such a stupid cause.
yeah, well, I think again, it goes back to mental health. I think they say histrionic. I mean, you could diagnose it, whatever it is, but I think she was acting on emotion. She wasn't acting on logic or thought or strategy. And yeah, it backfired for sure. So
and anyone that touches a woman, no matter what they do or say to you, is a punk ass bitch, man. It's like, suck it up, walk away, hit the door, and take a walk.
yeah. Yeah,
I would
that's what I
agree.
don't understand. How
I
it
would
kept
agree with
going.
that, Knocko, but I don't believe that was a situation that actually happened. That's why I rolled out that she had went and doctored the photos that she did have, and that stuff started to flow out. I'm with you.
Yeah, just in general.
Yeah, in general, I'm with you. But
No, I think you're right. I think she did definitely doctor those photos. I think there was evidence of it.
And that's an even bigger thing. You may get to it. I don't want to say anything about it because there may be another story in my mind you may touch on. But anyone who fakes being a victim of anything like that, whether it be Black, Jewish, a female, or anything, you just take all the power from anyone who actually is a victim of those things. So I'm right there with you, not going that.
Well said.
Yes,
well, this was another interesting relationship story, the Tom Brady and Gisele. So Tom Brady decides he retires and everything's like, oh, okay, he's retired. And then he says, no, I'm going back. And then he ends up getting divorced from his wife. This is really interesting to me because on the one hand, I see people like this. I mean, I interview them on the podcast every day that are just so driven. They can't quit. They just want to win. They want to compete, whether it's sports or acting or music or business or whatever. They don't want to give it up. And Tom clearly couldn't give it up, but now he's going to lose his family. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Like, he's not having that great of a year. I think the Bucks are like 7-8 or something. Was it really worth it to stay in the game, or could he have coached or been an announcer and still been competitive in some regard to do something amazing, but still have his family? What do you think, Knocko?
You know what it seems like with these, tier one athletes, it's so hard for them to give it up and to do something else after that when their whole identity is poured into that. And everything from their early childhood was pushing them toward that level. And their family's kind of just an accoutrement, just an accessory. And they don't really know their family. So when you pull that, they enter that void of being 24/7 around the people they're supposed to love. They're like, who are you? Who is this person? They rally around them. And you get a kick in the face, and it's a reality check. And then when you're excommunicated from your team and the daily regimen and that discipline you put into it, a lot of these guys crumble. I mean, there's so few guys that could step away graciously early. And look at Ali, and I mean, the list goes on and on. They just keep on trying to hold on to that peak. And one of the few guys that did it right recently, I think, was Derek Jeter. He left at the perfect time and didn't get married until afterwards. So he could really appreciate his family. He could get to know them. He could have kids now and really raise them, where before, people are just going through the motions and faking the funk. So, man, I mean, I feel for him. It's a tough scenario with someone that's that driven in life. And but what a performer. I mean, on the field, no one's better, greatest quarterback in our generation. But hopefully he's having a hell of a personal life right now that he got rid of his old lady, since his his skills on the field aren't going so well. So maybe it's a little lopsided this time. Maybe he's enjoying a little life too much. So go for it, Tom.
Awesome. Yeah. What do you think, Arno? You're a football fan?
I am, and as a Packer fan, I always delighted in the rare moments of seeing Tom Brady suffer. And I thought I'd enjoy it more this year than I am. I've always loved football. I played as a kid and always been a Packer fan. But during the pandemic, I started watching like every football game, and now I'm just in the habit of it. And I watch every game every week, and seeing the Bucs suck and seeing Tom Brady suck at first, I'm like, yeah, fuck Tom Brady. But the last game I watched, which they actually won in overtime, I'm like, this is kind of sad, man. And you're right, Knocko. He's love him or hate him. You can't argue that he is the GOAT of quarterbacks. Like nobody in NFL history has accomplished the way he has. And that's why I think it's just such a dramatic thing, and also a point of interest to see him just kind of crumble. And you never know that they're still in a playoff spot this year, and you know that nothing. I'd never count him out. And I sure don't want to see him pull another Super Bowl out of his ass again. But if he did, like, yeah, that would be the time to retire. He should have retired after the last one. But you're right. Again, Knocko, that like great athletes, the greater the athlete, the greater the drive to compete. And I think it is a common story. It's, you know, Brady's not the first one to maybe go a little bit past his prime. I'm a huge hockey fan, and I watched Chris Chelios, you know, trying to play into his 50s, and Jaromir Jagr's like crushing it in the Czech league right now at age 51, and that's a thing. Gordie Howe played, you know, to the point where he was able to play with his son on the same ice. So it's just a thing with the great athletes, is that you don't want to quit competing, and that's, like you said, that's how they're wired. That's how they've been wired since birth. As far as the relationship goes, it was always like, you know, the supermodel and the Uber quarterback. Like how could they really? Maybe they did really click. Who knows? They're both, you know, these completely out of the norm roles in society. But at the same time, like I don't, you know, you wonder if they ever talked, if they ever had any kind of relationship, and what had to happen to have it go south. I'd probably watch that made for Netflix movie as long as it had Gisele, you know, showing some pink bits and whatnot.
Oh God, we're getting canceled on here.
But whoever plays her, of course. Yeah, I don't think she would be the one getting her kid off. But
Sidney, do you want to respond to that?
As a diehard Sparty and hater of all things Michigan, including Tom Brady.
Oh, that too, yeah.
Go green, go green, baby, go green. The smartest thing he did was keep playing football. That woman was leaving him anyway.
Right.
There's a few things I believe in to my core, and one of them is a woman never leaves you until she's replaced you. All right. So Tom Brady had already been replaced, whether it be because his dick didn't get hard anymore, or he played football too long, or whatever it was. She already moved on. This would have been a worse story had he retired and then got fucking dumped. All right. This was already set in stone and in place. That's why he came back, because he figured it out. This bitch is leaving anyway. So why should I stop doing what I love to come home to someone who's going to be packing up and leaving anyway? He would have been better off had he married some ugly girl from Ann Arbor from off that campus when he graduated and made her into somebody who just birthed his kids. Then that bitch doesn't feel like she's got any place else to go. I'm married to Tom Brady. What do I have? Where else do I go from here? No, you had to be the star quarterback who dates the star cheerleader, and then y'all go off and get married and try to figure out how to live life. That doesn't work. It never works. Two type A's together doesn't work. Two beautiful people, uber beautiful people like that don't work, because never ever does one feel like they is underneath the other one. So smartest thing he did was keep playing. I don't give a shit how his season ends. I don't care if he goes out there and loses. I don't care if both arms fall off and his legs. It would much worse had that happen and be dumped at the same fucking time. This bitch was already fucking around on him. And the smartest thing he did was figure that shit out. I'll say this again for all your listeners, men. Understand me. Unless you are being a complete dick and doing what Knocko and I and every other man on this podcast disagrees with and putting your hands on your woman, when she leaves you, she's already left you. All right? So don't cry in your milk. Don't cry in your beer. You get your ass up, you keep moving. That bitch left you 6 months ago if she left you today.
Okay. Well, what about here? We have a happy story.
Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on. Just for a second, Chuck. You know, my favorite thing about you is after we all get done saying our opinions, you have these terrible transitions into the next.
No, this is a great transition. I'm telling you.
You, sir, I want you to work on this for 2023. Transitions is your homework.
Okay.
Segue.
I said, thank you. Segue. When I come on here after the 600 show, I want to hear better segues. All right.
Okay. So this segue, this is a good one though, because we're talking about relationships. We've talked about some that have ended, not gone so well. This is a happy story. Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck,
what are you doing?
They got back together. This was a big story. This is one of the biggest stories of the year. They were engaged like 20 years ago or something. And then they finally eloped and they got married. This was
J-Blow.
Huh?
J-Blow. I nicknamed him J-Blow.
J-Blow. Okay. Yeah. So what's your take on this one then? How long do you think this is going to last? And is this, because these are two type A's also. So it is interesting because you think Ben Affleck, rich movie star, could get any girl he wants. Hey, J-Lo, rich movie star, singer, actress, can get whoever she wants. Why did they pick each other? It seems like an accident waiting to happen.
Are you asking me or you?
Yeah, we'll start with you and we'll go back the other way.
Look here, smartest thing I did when I got married was I married a beautiful woman who's not in my industry or anywhere close to it at all. All right. If you are, and I don't know if these gentlemen will agree with me or not, but if you are anywhere close to being in the public spotlight at all, the smartest thing you can do is marry someone or boo up with someone if you're not in the marriage, someone who is not. You cannot have two people trying to have the spotlight. You can't have two beautiful people trying to get ready at the same time in the fucking bathroom mirror. It does not work. This will not work. First of all, J-Lo's ass has been around the world too many damn times. I don't know why you want to put your dick anywhere close to that. You might as well be fucking a bowl of water. You understand me? And not even a bowl of hot water.
We are getting canceled.
Canceled by who? Isn't this a podcast?
YouTube, I don't know. I'll get unmonetized.
Well, I don't know. You got a lot of beefing you got to do, motherfucker. All right, so, but yeah, you brought me on. I didn't break it onto this. Y'all was invited here. But true. And Ben Affleck, who cares about his little brother's a better actor than he is. All right, so he had to do something just for people to care about him. He's made 2 good movies his entire life, and he wasn't even the best actor in either one of them. So who cares? But
wait, what were the 2?
What was the one? He was the one he did Gone Girl, the chick who plays his wife. She's a much better actress than he is. I can't think of her name.
Jennifer Garner?
No, it wasn't Jennifer Garner. You think about his other piece of ass he had back in the day.
No, Good Will Hunting was good, and then the one with
that was the other one, Good Will Hunting with Matt Damon. So there's
the one where he's the bank robber one.
Gone Girl.
Gone baby, gone.
What's the one where he's the bank robber? And they were the nuns.
That's the town. That's
a great movie.
He was the second best actor in that one too.
True. Yeah.
I like The Accountant. I thought that was good.
That was a good, yeah.
Yeah, I love Dogma. Dogma was fantastic.
That's a good movie.
A hand in writing.
Every movie. Dogma is an excellent movie. Love the writing. I'm a big fan of good writing. So that's more what I'm into. So I'm with you there. Right. But again, every movie she's in, where's Ben Affleck at? He's down here on the bottom tier somewhere as far as actors there. But yeah. J-Blow, Gang Blow.
Okay. Arno, do you have an opinion on this one?
I agree with Sidney. I think it's a relevance thing. Like I think that's probably like the biggest motivator of like 2 people in that position to be like, oh well, the Inquirer is gonna go nuts if we go traipsing around together again. I don't know. As an F-list celebrity myself, like I abhor any kind of paparazzi, so I don't know why people would want that. But again, just like the Brady thing, that's how you're wired. You need to have that public attention. You're very conditioned to it, and if you don't have it, like something's missing in your life. That's just my hot take on it. I mean, I think that's probably
That's a
where
great point. That's a great point. That's a great point. I think that's an underrated point as well. Great point. Yeah, if you're out here, yeah, you I mean, you say you don't want it, you say you don't care about it, but the minute people stop talking about you, asking for autographs, boy, you are looking for it like a crackhead. So a great point. Great point.
Knocko, do you have any opinions on that one?
I mean, you just can't go against basic fundamentals. Red Sox fan, Yankees fan, oil and water. Avoid it at all costs. We'll start there. And then secondary, guys or girls that go back to their exes after time has gone on. It's like you left for a reason in the first place.
Well, I think she left him. Didn't isn't that what happened?
I mean, it's happened how many times now? So like, who could remember? But either way, you left for a reason. And as time goes on, we kind of block things out and only think about the good times.
Or only think about the bad things. Yeah.
Yeah, dependently. But I've seen a lot of guys on my job as they get separated from things, they just talk about the old times and they think, oh, I'd love to go back. You guys have it great. And it's like, no, motherfucker, you left this place for a reason. You hated it. You despised it. You talked about you couldn't leave fast enough. And same thing with a bad relationship. Don't go back. You left for a reason. Very few people can make it happen again once they get back together. It sounds like a good idea, but it's not. It's like trying to eat a shit sandwich and convince yourself it tastes like filet mignon. It's still a shit sandwich. Move on, guys.
Right.
That's a great point. Years and years ago, I was told something similar to that. The further you get away in a relationship, the better it looks. Because you forget about, and Knocko makes a great point, you forget about all the bullshit that you had to go through with that woman and with that man. All you remember those good times, that Christmas, that whatever it is. And then once you're back together, like, oh, I remember why I hate this motherfucker.
No, it could be the same thing. Like I remember I had a buddy that lived in Phoenix here from Seattle, and he moved back to Seattle, and I was like, I don't think you're going to last very long. You moved to Phoenix for a reason. Sure enough, like 6 months later, he's like, I'm coming back. I hate the weather here.
You know what? That's a good point too. I hate going home for that exact reason. Ain't nothing different. It's the same shit.
You need a reminder sometimes. So this was another crazy story. It was one of the weirdest things I've been watching. I usually don't even watch the Oscars actually, but this year I think my brother texted me and said, and I thought this was a fake story at first, but Will Smith slaps Chris Rock, and people thought it was there was a conspiracy theory. It was rigged. It was staged. I mean, the way that Chris Rock responded looked so real to me. If he was acting, that was the greatest performance. He should have got an Oscar because he looked stunned, like, what the fuck just happened? Why did I get slapped? Sidney, we'll start with you for this one. What do you think about that one? You went to see Chris Rock with Dave Chappelle. Did you not?
Yeah. I went and saw Chris.
Did he talk about that?
Yeah, I saw him when he came in town with Will. I saw him 2 months ago when he came by himself. Before I answer your question, I have a question for you real quick, if I can ask. I know it's your podcast. I love that it's your podcast. I don't want to disrespect. May I ask you, sir, Chuck, a question?
Oh, God. What now you're putting me on the spot. Yes.
Are you using Botox?
Am I using Botox?
Your forehead has never looked so smooth.
No, I think it's just the lighting.
You got the cheekbones of a young Indian. What are you doing, man?
It's just the lighting. I had a guy come up and set it up like professionally.
Okay.
I'll take it as a compliment, I guess. I swear to God, I'm not opposed to using Botox, but actually, that's a good, interesting story. What's the guy from American Idol? What's that guy's name? The Simon?
Simon Cowell.
Yeah. I saw some pictures of him. Oh my God. He even admitted, he's like, I think I'm getting addicted to Botox. I mean, he looked like really strange looking. It was very bizarre. So I don't really want to go down that route.
But you be careful, young fella. You be careful there, young Indian.
Yeah,
boy.
I thought maybe I might need that someday, but I think I'm too young for Botox. And then I thought, I think for a man, I don't know that it's ever okay. I think it's better to just age. I don't know. Maybe that's
Just a question.
Okay. Are you hitting on me? Is that what's going on? Was it a compliment or was it?
I got to tell you, Chuck, if I did like dudes, I think I could do better than you, Botox.
Okay. Wow.
I'm hitting on you, you jerk.
This is a nice segue. So anyways, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. Can we go back to that, or do you want to talk about my forehead more?
Hey, let me ask the question, man. You want people to be entertained by this podcast or not?
Yes, no, that was very good stuff. I'm trying to see. Why do you think that?
To your question now, back to that.
Yes.
Will Smith is not allowed in my home since that. I remember not allowed. I remember going to bed that night because I'm not a big fan of the Oscars anymore. I'm not into listening to rich people just drone on and on and on about something that they figured they were going to win anyway because they paid for it or the studio paid for it. But someone sent me a video from YouTube and I said, this cannot be real. And then I called my buddy who sent it to me and he said, that's absolutely real. And so I've been off Will Smith ever since. And you're talking to a guy who was one of the largest Will Smith fans out there since, hell, Parents Don't Understand, since he was doing that rap song way that many years ago. So no more movies. I have not seen King Richard. Won't watch anything else that he's ever done before or after. I have not seen Emancipation. I did sit down. The only thing I did watch most recently, now I'm pissed off with Trevor Noah, was when Trevor Noah brought him onto The Daily Show and allowed him to come on and do that bullshit apology, only because Will Smith wanted to make sure people watched Emancipation on Apple TV. So I'm out on it. I know for a fact that it was not rigged either. Chris Rock does go into it a little bit. I'm not going to try to do another comedian's material, but he does go into it a little bit in his set. He is dropping a special on Netflix in March of next year. So you get to hear whatever he has to say at that point. But completely out. Chris Rock is my guy. That's who I've modeled my career after. He's my favorite living. I think he's the greatest living comic right now on the planet next to myself. And so anything that's done to him like that, I'm not for it. Will Smith is less than a man to me. For me, your wife sat in front of the entire world and told you she was fucking another dude, and you sat there like a bitch. He looked so hurt when my wife couldn't sit at a red table in Arby's and tell me she was fucking another dude, and there's not horseradish sauce all over this motherfucker. Understand me? So you need to get. I don't let a man, if you can't control your household because you a bitch, you don't get to come out here in public and act like you that motherfucker. And so that is my other problem. Other problem with Will Smith is you can't have two black men who are on top of their professions, all the money in the world, and you showing your ass like that in front of white people. Absolutely not, because that there for people out there, and you guys may speak to it better than I can, but those who already dislike us, you only allow them to sit back and say, see, you can give them all the money, all the fame. Look at them, still animals. So that is another level for me. So there's so many different levels to this. And at the end of the day, a man's got to be a man. Chris did not see that coming. That was not, and I have it from good friends of mine within that circle. It was not planned. It was not staged. He had no idea that it was going to happen. He thought Will was just going to come up. They were going to go back and forth and joke because they've been friends for 20 plus years. So this, they're not strangers. So he was completely caught off guard by it as well. I commend Chris for not reacting as I would have, because they would have come back from 2 commercial breaks and I still would have been stumping Will Smith's ass on that stage. But I commend Chris Rock for not doing it and continuing on with this job as he could. A lot of men would not. I will say one thing Chris said, and I'm not going to do the bit, but he made a good point. He said 50 was talking shit about him. How can you slap 50 Cent? So anyway, it was a little convoluted. I got a little convoluted there a little bit, but I get even to this day, I get very, very emotional, very, very upset with what happened with Will Smith. And no, there are no movies, there are no music, there's no nothing in my house with Will Smith. Nothing.
Wow. Okay.
And never will be.
Arno, what do you think?
Well, first off, I most underrated Chris Rock project is top 5.
Boom. So good.
Just the best. I don't know that I think I almost pissed my pants watching that movie. It was so funny.
So good.
And yeah, you gotta commend Chris. And the joke was funny that he made about Jada. It was kind of funny shit. I mean, he's just doing his job. And as it's been pointed out many, many times, like Will's laughing too until he gets that look from her. Like, motherfucker, what are you laughing at now? Oh, all right, now he's gonna come up there and do something about it. The whole thing was, no. Let me preface this by saying, like, I'm a feminist, I think that our society is very out of whack with like balance between masculine and feminine energies. It's this way all fucking, testosterone and I had other feminists really angry at me when I say I prefer my feminism without all the testosterone, because a lot of people you listen to who claim to be feminists are smash the patriarchy, and I'm like, well, if you want to out aggro the patriarchy, it's fighting an uphill battle. But all that being said, I couldn't think of a better term for Will in that situation than just pussy whip. Like he's got to get up and do something about this very deft and well-timed joke that Chris Rock had. I thought the whole thing was ridiculous. That was one thing I didn't scroll past on my Instagram, is he couldn't really. It was every other post from every person on the entire platform. And I was for a while like, that's not real. Like, that didn't really happen. I thought it was set up too. And the more you delve into it, and you're just kind of like, it's like a car crash. You're like, holy shit, you can't stop watching and you can't stop, getting into it. All that being said, I am the last person on earth to deny someone else a second chance after doing some dumb shit. So just with my personal history, like, I'm here talking with you guys now. I'm loving every day of my life now because people gave me a second chance when I absolutely did not deserve it. And I hear everything you're saying, Sidney, and I get it as well as I can. But like, other than this one fucked up incident, Will Smith he's a brilliant actor. He was a great rapper. I think he's really super talented, and he shines a light on the world that the world's better because of. And so for like one catastrophic fuck up like this, I can't turn my back on him, and I still follow him on Instagram, and I do want to see Emancipation. I'm not banning him, but then again, like I said, I can't ban anybody. So it's
Hey, Chuck, can I say something
Yeah.
to that?
Yeah.
I would say to you, even though, and again, kudos to you for changing your life the way you have. I would say to you, though, you had to show, I'm sure, a proper amount of contrition for people to accept it.
Absolutely.
Will has yet to do that.
That's a good point.
And so that is, he's had all the time in the world to do it. Right. Initially, right after it, he's out there partying with his kids and his wife, and the kids are tweeting and posting. That's how we do it in this family. Yeah. And then it took him days to put together a response, and that seemed half-assed, like he didn't want to do it. And then you watch the interview with Trevor Noah that came. I'm a huge person. This would be the same way as if I hit up all three of you and we hadn't talked in a while, and I hit you up to say, hey man, want to see how you're doing. By the way, can I borrow $20? I mean, you would get off that phone call knowing he didn't give two shits about how I was doing. He wanted to borrow $20. And that's how I took the Trevor Noah interview. You don't give two shits about being contrite or anything with these fake tears on the Daily Show. You just want people to come out and see Emancipation that was getting ready to drop. So while I'm with you, we should give all people second chances if you find it in your heart. I'm a Christian, so I believe that to be the case. I was raised that way. I need you to show the amount of respect for the person that you harmed, and then we can kind of move forward from there. And I don't think Will Smith has done it, and I don't think he cares about it.
Wow. Good points by both of you. I love it. Knocko, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, amen to both of those statements. The thing I have to say is Chris Rock and George Carlin are two of my favorite comedians. I think they were both the greatest at that craft, and it goes along saying with putting hands on a woman is like kind of putting your hands on Chris Rock is like beating up your little brother. It's like, you're not getting any points from there. Not cool. Yeah. And then to Chris's thing kind of bummed me out. It's like, man, I'm a Queens, Brooklyn guy. It's like, hey, you saw this guy coming. Like, come on, give me a little shuck, little power. Come on, he put his chin out there, leaving it out for the world. It's like, come on, you could do better than that, Chris. He's been living in Jersey too long. But really, on a serious note, though, the thing that's really a bummer to see is the after effect, the blowback that it has on the fan and performer experience. Even though Will's he was an audience member, I see spillage continually happening where people are breaking that fourth wall and going after performers in violent fashions. I think we see that with Chappelle and anything where if someone doesn't agree with someone, they want to go hands on. And you're paying money or you got an invite to go to an event, and you don't have to like what they're saying, but you have to go along with it. To go on the stage, I see that as an alarming trend, and it's getting worse and worse. And I have a lot of friends that are performers, and it invokes a lot of anxiety for me. Was the world is wild, and these guys are out there performing in art, and you have an acceptance. It's like being in the front row of a comedy gig. You're going to get lit up. That walking in. So I don't like that trend, and I think that set a huge precedent for people to feel like, hey, this is you don't agree. I'm going to step up and do something about it. Not in my house. I'm not down with that. So I think Will Smith deserves a timeout. And if he does take proper ownership, which hopefully he will one day, 5 years down the road, hey, like you said, we're a Christian-based society. Redemption is one of man's greatest qualities. Hey, you can come back and do a comeback. We'll receive you in open arms if you take proper ownership and make those amends. And
did he ever apologize to Chris Rock directly? Because I feel like he needs to give him a call or sit down on Oprah or something, direct, face to face, man to man, and say, you know what, and also I want to hear him say that he feels guilty, because I think that's what your point is, Sidney, is that it doesn't seem like he feels any guilt. Like he's embarrassed maybe a little bit, and he feels regretful because he doesn't like the reaction that he got from it. But does he actually feel bad about doing that?
No, I watched him on the Daily Show throw his father under the bus. He said, yeah, I don't know what happened. My father used to abuse my mother. That has nothing to do with nothing. You are in your 50s. Everybody and their mother knows that your father was not the greatest dad and husband. Just say you were wrong. Just say I'm a jackass. I shouldn't have done that. That was out of place. And you know what? What else you can add in? I'm an arrogant asshole, because what made me think that I can walk up on stage in front of the entire world and slap anybody like that? The dude is so upsetting. I told you guys, I get fired up every time this topic is brought up. I cannot stand this man. I cannot stand this man.
Okay. Well,
and I can't stand any man that can't be a man.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Chuck.
How's this transition? Speaking of arrogant assholes, all right, that's good. Elon Musk buys Twitter, one of the biggest stories of the year. Now, this is interesting because I have conservative friends. I have liberal friends. My conservative friends, they love Musk. They're like, oh, this guy, he's like amazing. He's so great. My liberal friends hate him. And I'm kind of trying to figure out, I don't know that he's even political, but for whatever reason, people politicize everything now. So people on the right love him. People on the left hate him. And it is interesting that a guy who is, into designing spaceships and electric cars wants to buy a social media thing. And at first I thought, well, this is kind of good because he's kind of peeling back the curtain, and he did these Twitter files are really fascinating, that they were shadow banning all these people and all these things were going on that we didn't know about, that may have interfered with elections and things. And that's the part was interesting. But the part that was annoying is just how he has to have an opinion on everything. And he's got to say this and that. And it's like, dude, I know you're a billionaire and you own Twitter, but geez, can you take it down a few notches? Because I'm getting sick of it. I think our society is getting sick of narcissists. I think that's a huge thing that's gone on the last few years, whether it's Kanye or whoever you want to call a narcissist, but Musk definitely seems to fit that category. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Knocko, we'll start with you. We'll go around the circle the other way.
It's funny when you say your conservative friends and then liberal friends, he's like that dichotomy that, the liberals, hate what's going on right now, but then the conservatives, when you bring up Tesla and electric cars, they hate that aspect. So it's like he has a lot of crossover that you don't really see in society. But it's one of those things. It's like he's doing some great things, like you say, as far as censorship and unmasking things that have gone down in this country that were wrong, and then he's doing some asinine things. So. No one's perfect, but we're putting so much stock in one person and so much emotional value. It's like, hey, he's just a guy like anyone else. He's a very talented individual, but when people like super talented in one area, they're going to be mega lacking in another area. So that's what we're seeing now that, all eyes are on him, we're seeing all those mistakes and weirdo things that he does that people just glossed over before and really weren't aware of it. But he's just a guy, and he's gonna talk shit like guys do. It's just out in a public forum, and it makes for an interesting space in social media. And we'll see where he goes with this Twitter thing. It definitely brought some light to Twitter, and we'll see where he pushes that. So again, I don't agree with a lot of what he does, but as long as it's legal, move forward. Let's go. Let's see it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting too, because I think a lot of people don't know that he has autism or a mild form of autism. And so that may explain why he's socially, I think he's awkward. If you've ever seen him like in an interview with Joe Rogan, he's kind of awkward. And I think he's brilliant in terms of business and, science and those kinds of things. But socially, he's had failed relationships, and obviously with the things that he says on Twitter, to me, it's kind of like inappropriate and just kind of like annoying. But again, some people love him. What do you think, Arno? Are you a fan of Elon or?
My grandma passed away in 2009. My mom inherited her stock portfolio, and she inherited the manager with it. And he's like, "Don't worry about it. I'll run everything. You don't have to make any decisions." And my mom's like, "I want to buy some of this Tesla at $19 a share." And this manager's like, "No, you don't want to do that. That's a shit stock. I'm not going to let you do that." And my mom actually took control of the portfolio specifically to buy 300 shares of Tesla at $19 a share.
Wow.
So right now, I'm not really fucking too happy with Elon because it's all tanking because of his dumb bullshit. And it's like, it really is. You have to ask yourself, are we talking about a grown ass man here? Or are we talking about someone who just doesn't, again, no guardrails, someone who doesn't have, it thinks that no one can limit him. I can see the parallels between him and Trump. They both think they can just go run in their mouth, and securities law is a ridiculously complicated thing. But if you're a CEO of a publicly traded company, you can't go around saying "Oh, should I take the company private? What do you think, Twitter?" You can't fucking do that. It's against the law. It's against. My dad got his securities license. He had to study for years to pass the test. It's a very complicated thing. And Elon just flouts all of that. He can do whatever the fuck he wants, and no one can touch him. And I think that's a disgusting attitude in any human being, but especially one that has as much power as he does. And it's coming back to bite him. I'm watching Tesla stock tank every single day, and it does suck because he did some amazing things to start that company and to get it to where it was at its peak. But now it's all tumbling down, and there are a lot of people who are thinking they're real slick and they're buying low, and I hope they're right for the sake of my inheritance. But the bottom line is he's running a big, not a big, but what was it for a moment the biggest company on the planet. He's running it square to the ground, and it's all just from hubris.
Yep.
I don't think he gives a shit about free speech. I don't think that's really a big priority to him. I think Kanye, all these other guys we're talking about, he just likes pushing people's buttons. And I get a kick out of when I don't like Republicans or Democrats. I think they're both completely full of shit. I think that the two political poles are reflections of each other. They're mirror images as far as I'm concerned. But I thought it was funny when Elon paid $11 billion in taxes just to spite Elizabeth Warren. That was funny. All right, good job, Elon. That's funny. But then when I think the rest of the shit, he's like, "Yes, I used to be a Democrat, and now I'm a conservative because woke sucks and blah blah blah." He's doing the same shit Donald Trump was doing with Donald Trump has been on every side of every issue you can imagine. He was anti-abortion, he was pro-abortion, guns, anti-gun, pro-gun. He's just floating in the breeze and saying whatever the fuck he wants to say. In Trump's case, it's very much pandering. I don't think Elon's pandering, but I think he gets a kick out of pissing off liberals, and he doesn't care that liberals are the number one demographic who buy Teslas, and he's willing to run the company into the ground just to thumb his nose at people, and it's not an appealing trait. And I get he's on the spectrum, and I'm sure it's not easy sometimes, and I'm sure that's a factor in his success as well, and his ability to focus and make things happen. But yeah, overall, I thought Elon was funny a couple of years ago, and now I'm just like, all right, it's not funny anymore. Like, just fucking like get
that's
back
kind of
to
where
your
I'm
core
at.
business.
Yeah,
and
at first he had a couple quips, and I was like, oh, this guy's gonna be bringing up free speech, and he had a couple funny things, and now I'm like, oh, another fucking tweet from this guy. Can you just shut the fuck up? Like, he's turning into a Trump. You're right, exactly. Sidney, what do you think?
I think Elon Musk has made the mistake that every man in this age group has made. The first one was getting those hair plugs. And the
Did he do the Botox? He might have done some Botox. He can afford it.
I'm sure he's done Botox as well. But the first one was those hair plugs. The second one was buying Twitter. Twitter for him was the equivalent to a regular guy going out buying a Corvette he doesn't fucking need.
That's a great analogy. That is it's a midlife crisis.
Or a Tesla Plaid, a Tesla S Plaid.
Elon got that Corvette home and realized I can't take this bitch off road, and I can't really not supposed to drive it every day. I got to keep this bitch washed and clean. What kind of gas does it take? I don't know if I want to really deal with any of this. You saw him trying to take the Corvette back to the dealership, and the dealership said, no, you've already signed the paperwork. The fucking car is yours. Do we all remember him trying to get out of that?
Spot on, yes. Spot on. I remember very clearly.
Trying to get out that deal. This guy wants so badly to not have Twitter. He allowed the people on Twitter. He knew what the vote was going to be.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, did he? Should I step down? Must have known that, right?
Right. Should I step down? You knew everybody, even if they love you, was going to say, yeah, get your ass up out of here and get your ass out.
Because they all got Tesla stock too. They don't give a fuck about free speech. They give a fuck about their portfolio.
And well, you know what? Arno makes a great point here, and I talk about this all the time. I have a friend of mine I do a podcast with, and we talk about this. We go back and forth. I myself am a conservative, a real conservative. My good friend is a socialist and proud to be socialist. And we go back and forth, and we talk about race, we talk about money. And he swears, and he'll tell, if he was here right now, he would tell you, if Oprah Winfrey was in the same room with Jeff Bezos wouldn't give two fucks about Oprah Winfrey at all. And I'm of a different flavor. I'm with Arnold. People care about their money. If I'm a billionaire, you're a billionaire. If we help me make some more, I help you make some more. That's what it's about at the end of the day. All this liberal shit and some conservative shit is all pure nonsense. Pure nonsense. You know how many of these people you can sit down and ask them anything from the Bill of Rights to anything else about the history of this country, and they couldn't sit down and answer 5 questions and get at least an 80%? Millions of them. I don't even believe these idiots should be allowed to vote unless they can pass a high school civics exam. I'm so sick of it. Elon Musk can shut the hell up too, or he can keep talking. What I do enjoy, and I'm sorry, Arnold, because I know it's hurting your inheritance. I know you had some real stuff lined up with that money, but I am enjoying this motherfucker buying this Corvette and wishing he had not bought it. 2 things he bought, he wishes he hadn't: them hair plugs and that motherfucking Corvette.
That is hilarious. Well, for the rest of us who aren't billionaires, that's another big story of the year, is just the economy, right? Like, the gas prices have gone up. The inflation is through the roof. I mean, it's funny because I feel like the people that complain about the inflation the most are my friends who have more money than the average person. The NFTs and the crypto, all that shit is crashed, right? That stuff is seems to be almost done.
I love it.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the whole economy? I mean, are we going to bounce back from this, or is this the end? Is this like a sign of the times? The Roman Empire is coming to an end.
Who you throwing that at first?
Let's start with Knocko. We'll go up. We'll go a circle again.
Oh man, I'm like the least money orientated guy here. I'm sure. I don't give a crap about money. I got into one of the, toughest professions, and it wasn't for the money, even though we get paid pretty decent. I mean, it goes back to, I think, just how I live my life is trying to live a minimalist lifestyle. I don't need a whole lot to make myself happy. A couple of a good group of friends that you can count on one hand, a decent companion, my girlfriend, and a roof over my head and some clean drinking water. I think all this other stuff that gets obscured with stocks and this and that. We're obsessed with obtaining wealth instead of obsessed with doing the right thing and focusing on the basics. And as being a good person, being charitable, and just being in control of your own emotions. As we see all these people that have all this money, but still they can't control their emotions. So I think I would hope that the pandemic would have shown people, hey, you don't need all these extra things to make your life happy. And if you do, you have to do some soul searching on that. Not to get too deep and philosophical on that.
I love it. I
But
love when people get deep and philosophical.
yeah, I mean, it's just very disheartening. I see people in my profession just working and working overtime, and they amass this, big amount of money, and then they think that's going to solve their unhappiness. And it doesn't take much, at least for me. I say going to the beach costs nothing, and that'll produce some of the greatest joy in your life of just playing in the sand and swimming and just throwing a football around with your buddies, or going on a hike. There's so many things that are good for you, and it costs zero. So don't rely on money for happiness. Yeah, having some extra toys and all that's kind of cool, but don't focus on that. Focus on good friends and being a good person. That's my 2 cents on that.
Love it. Well, Arno, if you didn't have the Tesla stock, you might not care as much either.
I'll get over it, and I ultimately, like, Knocko's totally right. The whole the essence of happiness, and this has been proven by neuroscientists, like examining how our brains work and what like actually makes us happy. Happiness is composed of kindness, gratitude, and forgiveness. And the more familiar you are with those three things, the happier you're going to be. And it doesn't cost a dime to practice those three qualities. To be frank, it's a lot easier to sit around contemplating kindness, gratitude, and forgiveness when you're not worrying about how you're going to pay your bills, or if you don't have like a bank coming to reprocess your house, or money makes it easier to have that kind of leisure. But as we're talking about all these other, the Elon Musks of the world and the Kanyes and everybody else, like they got a shit ton of money, and there's some miserable motherfuckers. So I think if we're learning anything in this economic downturn, it is the importance of really what makes being a human being such a great experience. And again, I'm all totally with Knocko, like getting outside, get in the water, get out in nature. Like there's all kinds of shit that doesn't cost a dime that really can create a foundation of a genuine happiness. As far as like what's going to happen now, it's hard to say. Money has really reached the point, and it's been like this for a long time now. I can't go take a paper dollar and exchange it for $1 worth of gold anywhere. It's probably been almost 100 years since you could do that. For a very long time, money has just been a story. And it's as long as we all believe the story, then the economy works. I think with the biggest, like, most ominous prospect of what's happening right now is if people like quit believing in the story of money, as the whole crypto bubble evidence, like, oh, we're going to have a whole new kind of economy. We're going to have a money based on how many equations a computer can solve. I've actually I have a new crypto I'm developing. It's called Wank Coin, and you mine it by actually wanking. And so I've got a huge cache of that I've been stashing away, and I'm getting into the next version of it, and that's something I'm going to push as an alternative form of currency. But the bottom line is, as long as we believe in how this economy works, it'll continue to work. But if enough people fail or get to the point where, like, I don't believe this shit anymore, I'm going to start, doomsday prepping, and my currency is how many rounds of ammunition I have. That's
I'm gonna say with Knocko if that happens because he's got all the guns. He's the top. So.
I know my way around a firearm, and I got a little bit myself, but it's yeah. I think it's important to bring it back to a serious note. I think it's just important to not lose your faith in humanity and understand that, like, as fucked up as humanity has sunk over the past 50,000 years or so, time and time again, we've come back with a greater compassion and understanding that we are a social creature that requires like other humans in order to function properly. We humans came to be about 200,000 years ago in the time of a biological epoch called the time of the megafauna, when there was like 20-foot tall cave bears and saber-toothed tigers and big giant flightless birds that could just snap your ass in half. And we were these relatively weak, puny creatures, but it was not only our intelligence, but our ability to work together that brought us to a point where we not only dominate this planet, but we threaten the the function of this planet, for better or worse. And it'll be interesting. I have faith in humanity, and I think we will find a way out of this. How exactly, I can't say, but I am certainly an optimist. And I think as long as we maintain that faith, as difficult as it can be at times, that we're going to be okay.
Awesome. Very well said. Sydney, do you have an opinion on this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I got one. And I'm very serious about this too. Give me all the money. All right. So, give me all the money. I mean that with my heart and soul, and not only money, give me all the power, because not only did we see that with this cycle with the economy, it's money and power, baby. My wife and I are talking about maybe having a child. And if we decide to, or are blessed to have one, I will teach him and her, your job on this planet is to get the largest slice of pie that you can. Because at the end of the day, that's all anybody cares about. It's great that you guys, especially you, Knocko, you feel the way you feel. And I'm not saying I disagree with you, and because that's how you feel. But this world, money and power, get it all, consume it all, get as much as you can. At the end of the day, that's all anyone cares about. That will set you up. The government, that's what they care about. Other people, that's what they care about. You want to be at the top of the heap, you got to have it. You got to have it. Give it all to me. I have one house already on a private golf course. I'm trying to get another one. Then I want another house over here. I want another. Consume it all. Wealth, wealth, wealth. All of the heartfelt feelings and man love man and all of that is great. That shit went by the wayside during the pandemic. People would have cut your throat for a roll of toilet paper. You understand me? Everybody who had guns like you, sir, brother Knocko, was trying to get more guns because they thought this was last days. This was it. All right. So all of that peace be with you. That's great when we're all getting along and there's no pandemic and everyone can go get a roll of toilet paper if you need it at Costco, or go get your apples or whatever. The minute people feel like they can't get their fair share, all that shit go. That's it. What I don't get and what I don't understand is how people go back to the same. And I guess I do kind of get it, because people, every part of their existence is based off habit. But they go back to the same habits after what we've seen. If you've lived through the crash of the early 2000s and you've lived through what people thought was getting ready to be a crash, you should have already made some substantial changes. If you're able to find your way into buying a home, that should be the first thing that you do come 2023, if you are able to do it. That is your first and best way to build wealth as a regular old Joe walking around the street. And then after that, you can stockpile, because if you have that asset, there's so many other doors that can open for you. But give me all the money. And if you don't want it, go ahead and push your share of money over to this side of the table. All the money, all the power. You've already seen the way. They've shown you the way. All you got to do on top of that is keep some no people around you, so you won't be out there saying "How Hitler" and buying shit like a Corvette if you don't need it with hair plugs, and you'll be all right. Give me all the money.
Okay, so then what about that's just I didn't even have this on my list, but I think it's makes sense to talk about. What about the people who are down and out on their luck? Because I know Sydney, I mean, we both live in Phoenix area, and I mean, I'm sure Knocko, you've seen it in LA. The homeless stuff is, I mean, it seems to be getting out of control, and we have the border here, so we have fentanyl. That's you know, they're finding giant things of fentanyl coming over the border, and then you've got the immigrants that are just showing up. There's like thousands of them just showing up at the border. They're down on their luck as well. So what do we do about all these people who are struggling? I mean, we have so much wealth in this country. It seems like no one has an answer for this, though. There's still giant homeless encampments in every major city. There's still the fentanyls all over the place. There's still the immigrants are, I don't know what the solution is. They're sending them to Kamala Harris's house. I don't think that really solves the problem. So what is the solution for people who are down and out, down on their luck, or maybe trying to start a new life? What can we do? Knocko, I'll start with you because you've worked Skid Row in LA, right? I mean, that's one of the biggest homeless areas in the country.
Yeah, it's probably ground zero for the United States, which is, we deem ourselves number one in the nation. And we have situations like that you don't see in other countries. So are we really number one, or are we just fooling ourselves? But that said, some of the people down in Skid Row and Venice Beach, or pretty much every area I've worked in the city where encountered homeless people, some of the happiest, nicest people I've ever encountered were homeless. And some of the most miserable, rotten, despicable people, people I know personally, are millionaires. And say it's very interesting to see. That's what's great about my job. I get to cross all spectrums of society and socioeconomics. And how do we solve it? I think it's an open book test. We already know it, but the politicians don't want to pull the trigger on that. They don't want to do the ugly things, and they don't want to, you don't want to see how the sausage is made. Really, there's solutions for all these problems. It's happened in the past, and like I said, it's an open book test, and but they don't have the gumption to do what needs to be done. And I'm trying to think of the last part of your question. You know what? I just wanted to bring it back to, the whole thing, money and power. We're supposedly number one. And I asked a group of buddies of mine, I said, all these empires, fall by the wayside little by little. And it's like the UK, France, Spain, all these countries were number one at one time. Like, so what if we slip to number two? Is that the worst thing in the world? It's not like the US is going to go from number one and we're going to hit rock bottom. We're going to be number 10. It'll be a gradual slide. And, so if China takes the reins for a while, or India, or whatever, like, so is much going to change in your life? No, come on, get serious here. It's like Sidney said, it's the rich and the poor. It's not black or white or anything else. It's either you're in the club or you're not. And, it's just, I think it's America's obsession with being number one. And we really have to examine what that is. And are we really still that? And as far as, like I said, the solutions, they're there. Just say when. We're ready for it on my side of the fence. So,
okay. Do you agree with that, Arno?
Yeah, I agree with pretty much across the board. It makes me think I spent a lot of time in Scandinavia, primarily Denmark, but also Norway. I've been to Sweden and Finland. And when you get there, you're just like, holy shit, this is how grown-ups have a society. Like, everybody looks after one another. They look after the planet. Everybody's taken care of. There's still venture. There's still capitalism. There's still business. Some of the biggest businesses on the planet are based in Scandinavia. At the same time, it's one thing to do that in Denmark, where 5.5 million people live, and they all have like a very common culture. And it's another thing to do it in the United States, where we have 320 million people or whatever it is now. And our whole jam from the get-go is that we're a nation of immigrants from people who are involuntarily brought here. So it's a different demographic we're working with, much different scale we're working with. But I think we can take lessons from Scandinavia and from other, and I agree with Knocko totally. Like we have an arrogance in the United States. We're like, oh, we don't need to look at what Germany's doing. Like, what the fuck does Germany know? Like, we're the fucking United States. But the fact is like per capita and pound for pound, Germany is one of the most successful economies on the planet. And they do things like if a kid is geared to be a scientist, they can get multiple PhDs on the government. Whereas if a kid's not geared to be a scientist, they're like, well, maybe you'd be better off in being an electrician or a machinist or whatever. And they send them to trade school, and they get out of school with a job that can support a family. And it's Europe, so they get 3 months off a year, and they only work 30 hours a week. But it is a pretty successful society, and I think we got a lot to learn from there. At the same time, there's nothing's foolproof. And as the whole Ukraine situation has demonstrated, like one wrench in the works can throw things off in Germany and other places where things seem to be moving smoothly before. So I think what it boils down to is resilience. And can we be resilient as a society? And in order to do that, we need to first be resilient as individuals. I'm a Buddhist. I work on my inner peace every day to varying degrees of success. But I do that because I know that without my own sense of inner peace, I don't have a prayer in hell to create peace in the world around me. And so I think we all need to look inward as human beings and challenge ourselves as to what our role in the world is and what our impact on the world around us is going to be, and go from there. And that's really all we can do.
I love it. Well said. Sidney, can you top that?
I gotta tell you, you keep saying "well said" after their responses, and I don't feel like I'm getting the same equal amount of love.
Hey, I'm laughing my ass off at what you said. You're getting. I'm a great audience for you, am I not?
I'm just kidding with you, Chuck.
All right. I love what you're saying too. I love what all you guys are saying. Why do you think I had all three of you on here?
Too late. No. In all seriousness, no. Though, to go back to something that Knocko said, are we still number one? Absolutely. And the rest of the world shows us every day. They definitely showed us during the 6 years, and I'm including the 2 years prior to him getting in office, that Trump was running around and running his mouth. The world outside of China, maybe Japan as well, was worried about if we were slipping, because they all do. Look at what is happening over in Ukraine and Russia. We were the first ones that everyone wanted to come running to. Are you going to get involved? Are you going to help? Those who didn't want to even get involved and help, we had to pull them in with our leadership. Again, back to Japan and Russia, I'll throw them in as well. They wanted to see this country crumble, and they thought Trump would be the way. So to answer that question, I believe we are still number one. I believe the rest of the world, friends and foes, are worried about us being in that position for their own reasons. As far as immigrants and the homeless and Skid Row, my heart goes out to immigrants. I'll start there first. I often in conversations, I would say, because I have friends who call themselves conservatives. I probably wouldn't call them that, because we have these discussions and I don't think they quite get the gist of what being a conservative is. But they are staunchly against immigrants coming into this country. And the question I always throw to them is, let's go ahead and throw the role reversal in. Would you sneak into Mexico if it meant the life of your family? If it meant you'd be able to go over there and have a better life? And I have yet to have anyone admit that they would, but the room goes silent. And that lets me know, goddamn well, you'd sneak your ass over to another country if it meant taking care of your family. As far as Skid Row and Phoenix, and you know this, Chuck, Phoenix is getting pretty bad here. The city keeps moving them around. I'm sure it's much like LA when they're ready to go ahead and develop another area of the city. Okay, let's find another place for you and all your tents to go until we're ready to develop that part of the city. And we're gaining more and more homeless here. I don't think we will ever see a real solution to either, because going back to what Knocko said, this is all politics, baby. This is it. This is a great talking point for us. When Republicans have something they want to say against Biden, even though it has nothing to do with Biden, what did they do? They started talking about all of these immigrants that were coming from South America, coming ready to cross the border. That came out of nowhere. No one even gave two fucks about it until you decided you wanted to put it on the front page of a newspaper. So it's a great talking point for these guys to get involved with every 2 years or every 4 years, depending on the election. I love something that Arnold said, bringing in some of the things that he's seen. The only problem with that is what we saw before with some of the Democrats. Talk about Elizabeth Warren, who I'm not a big fan of. Bernie Sanders, who can't go off to an old folks home fast enough for me. I'm not a fan of his either. But the first problem that these two people always have, and they'll never get around it, and I don't see us getting around it in our lifetime, is the word socialism. And when you start talking about some of these things that other countries are doing, and you start talking about bringing that here, that is the death nail to your conversation, to that debate on your side right away. Because I myself am a capitalist. I do not believe firmly in socialism either, but I do believe, as Knocko was putting it, there is a solution somewhere in the middle. But the problem is, again, we have people who can't pass a high school civic exam being allowed to vote and decide things in this country. And we saw a lot of them trying to attack the Capitol. We see a lot of them walking around going out to vote. They were never voting before until that dude with the hair that does not stay on his head started speaking to them. So this is the huge problem. Do I see us ever finding a solution? No, which takes me back to my point I made before. Go out, and if your piece is going to the beach, throwing the football and things like that, then that is your piece. If you are somewhere on the opposite, such as I am, then you go out and you get the biggest slice of this fucking pie. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. The rest of it is all bullshit, whether it be racism or anything else. You look at Fox News, you look at CNN, you look at MSNBC, you look at me and you, anyone else on here who may have a podcast. Forgive me if you have one and you're trying to sell time for commercials. We're all trying to get more views. We're all trying to gain more eyeballs. We're all trying to gain more ears. We're not doing it just because we have a message to deliver. We're also doing it because there's money to be made. And whatever, and minus the four of us, the rest of these people will do and say whatever they have to do and say, even if it means saying that Sandy Hook was absolutely faked. These people will do and say whatever they got to do. And that goes for these networks as well that allow, that these people allow to lead them around by the nose. There's an answer, but nobody wants it because too many people are making money off not answering it. Get your biggest slice of the pie.
No, that is actually, I'm going to give you a call. That was well said, especially the part about, I think the solution is in the middle. I don't think it's socialism. I don't think it's like, hey, sink or swim, you're on your own. Good luck, motherfucker. I think it's something like helping some of these people get back on their feet, find a path. You guys have all found your path. I mean, you're a great comedian, you're a great speaker, you're a great cop, and you've all found a purpose in your life. And I think there's a lot of people out there right now that are just lost, especially this younger generation that does not know, they just think I'm going to be a TikTok star. I mean, I used to work in the schools and that was like the number one thing that kids said, oh, I'm going to be a YouTuber, or I'm going to be a TikToker. I mean, we can't have 98% of the population being TikTokers. Like somebody's got to, be a doctor or a nurse or, take care, be a cop, build the buildings, build the roads, and do all this other stuff.
Chuck, here's the thing. And this is what's not, first of all, the TikToker, that's a great way to put it. I would also say every generation has their thing. When I was coming up, people, I'm going to play in the NBA.
Yeah.
Everybody can't play in the NBA, motherfucker. You better learn how to read and write. I don't know what that's what you're going to need to do. But I'm a firm believer, and especially in my profession, I tell comics this and writers and actors and whatnot, podcasters, whatever. I tell them this all the time. Everybody was not meant to. I know your parents told you. I know your mom told you should have played Romeo in the 4th grade. No, your teacher knew better. She cast you as a fucking tree. Sometimes you need to figure out you're just a tree. Everyone doesn't get to be Romeo. Everybody doesn't get to be Juliet. That's not what it is. And be a tree and be okay with being a tree. And that's what people are not okay with. The whole thing, I want to be a TikToker. Again, going back to my own example, an NBA star. That's not what you were put on this earth to do. The greatest gift one can give oneself is self-awareness. That is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Not going out to buy a new car, not going to buy new clothes, not falling in love, none of that. self-aware. If you are self-aware, the rest of your life is fucking easy. But if you really believe you were meant to play Romeo and you think that into your 30s, you are constantly chasing Juliet when you should have been chasing tree number 2, who was standing next to you over here out of the spotlight, because that's where you're supposed to be. Figure out where you're supposed to be. You know better than him. You know better than her. Some of these people you talk to, all of us we talk to, you know better than the immigrant coming across the border. And God help us all if they didn't come across the border and do the shit we didn't want to do. If I had to go out here and manicure my own backyard or clean my own house, God help me and my wife. All right. So these people have a purpose as you have a purpose. But motherfucker, you meant to play tree number 2 and you just got to live with it.
Or maybe their purpose is not being in a play. Maybe it's doing something totally different. Maybe they're going to be the next CEO of Twitter. I mean, sometimes
no. You are missing the point. The next CEO of Twitter was Romeo in the fucking play.
So you're saying, yeah, no, I understand. Not everybody is going to be at the top of the game. Like for basketball players, there's only so many that can go professional. But I do think that people, you know, if they have a dream, they should try to follow it. But yeah, you're right. After a certain time, there comes a point where maybe it's time to give it up.
What? No. Your dreaming is for high school, college, all right, halfway through your 20s, all right, where you puke on your own shoes outside the bar because you didn't know that shot night wasn't for you. You learned the lesson. You don't go back and do shot night again Saturday after Saturday. No, you find something else to do. Chuck, you are the problem. You are the problem, Chuck. You're telling these people.
No, I'm telling you, this is my only point. My only point is sometimes you got to grind a little and it takes time, because I've had 300 of these episodes and I've interviewed some of the biggest musicians around. And for a lot of those stories, it's like they started out and they were, as a comedian, I'm sure your first time did not go super well. Everybody bombs as a comedian and you keep going and then you get better. Now, if there's no clues that nobody's telling you to keep going, then you're delusional.
Thank you. And
there
that's
is
what I'm
definitely
saying.
A point.
Yes, there's some work to get to where you want to be. No, you don't just graduate from college and you're a CEO.
You have to have some sort of talent.
Absolutely. Whether you believe in God, Buddha, the universe, whatever you believe in, it will open or shut doors. You need to know. All right. People mistake hard work for, I'm just going down the wrong road. No, motherfucker, if you keep every step you take, you hit a hurdle, you weren't supposed to run the hurdles. Maybe you're just supposed to run a straight 100 meters. That's what you were supposed to do. No. So, no, I'm with you. Yes, there's going to be some hurdles. You got to be able to get them. Absolutely. We are not.
Because I think, I'm just saying the other side of the problem is people that, like I said, they're 16. They're like, I'm going to be a TikToker. They think they're going to go out and post one TikTok. It's going to go viral. And then that's it. Then that's what they're going to do. It doesn't work that way. Like the people that are professional TikTokers, they had to grind. They had to put a lot of time, usually, unless they're just a really hot chick, then they just put a bikini TikTok and they're good. But for a lot of people, it takes a lot of hard work. And, but yeah, you got to have the talent too. If you're meant to be a tree, you can't be Romeo. I definitely agree to that too. Although you can have a long career as a tree, as a supporting cast member, and you can act in movies and TV. You can be a tree.
Absolutely can. But if you're standing there and looking to your sides and all you see is branches, motherfucker, I need you to get over there and stand up to the side out the spotlight.
Okay. Well said. Well said. All right. Is there anything else? I mean, we covered a lot. Was there anything else? Any stories that I missed from the year? I mean, there was so many big news stories. Does anybody else have one that I missed that you want to talk about? Crickets.
Yeah, I'm kind of at a loss here. I think the conversation was fantastic. I would just kind of tag on to what Sidney was saying. Also, I'm a capitalist as well. I don't think socialism has proved over and over again that it's a failed system. And when you go back to it, like the irony of Karl Marx kicking back on his buddy Frederick Engels' money that his dad made in cotton mills in the UK. From slave labor in the Americas, and then talking about the plight of the worker is pretty good. But you understand that the reason why every Marxist revolution happened is because there's some fucked up circumstances, but every single one led from nowhere but from a frying pan into a fire. And I think it's important that we're forthright about that in society. And it brings to mind, I was in Berlin in November of 19 to speak at the 30th anniversary of the wall coming down. And one of my co-presenters there was a guy who at a very young age was part of the East German secret police. And now like his entire mission is to like expose how fucked up that system was and to remind people of how fucked up it was. And he told me one of his greatest concerns is that it's been a while and that young people think that communism and socialism is cool again. And he's very concerned about where it's going to lead. And I think going back to my fascination with Scandinavia, first of all, they're not socialists. They are capitalists with like very strong social safety nets. But aside from Norway's oil industry, like none of them have state-owned industry. None of them have like true Marxism. But the reason it works is because, like you're saying, Chuck, is you kind of sift the pros and cons from either system and then apply it in a dynamic evolutionary way. And I think we need to remember history at the same time as we kind of face the current problems we have today. And it's it reminds me of another quote I read recently that was really powerful. I felt I'm a big fan of Yuval Noah Harari. He's the author of *Sapiens* and *Homo Deus* and a bunch of other like real heady books. He's an anthropologist. The books read like an adventure novel. They're a lot of fun. But he said, there's all this debate about history right now and how we should teach it. But do we teach history to remember it, or is it possible to teach history to liberate ourselves being humanity, from all the fucked up things that happened in the past? Now, obviously, we have to have a frank and honest discussion about the past, which is not, history's always been written by the victors, and it will continue to be. But at the same time, we're looking at the past in an honest and kind of authentic way. Just have that idea of saying, hey, kid, rather than say to our children, like, I had to deal with this bullshit my whole life, now you deal with it. What if we said, like, hey, I had to deal with this bullshit my whole life, you don't have to. Like the whole crux of you taking over this world is that you could find a better way to do things than the way things have been done for 200,000 years. And so I that kind of goes back to my sense of optimism, is that I think we as human beings can realize that, and we can liberate ourselves from the past. Before we do that, we got to be honest about it. But I think once we're honest about it, we just make a decision and say, are we still going to like identify each other by the color of our skin going forward? Are we still going to are we going to kill each other, people who don't worship the same way we do? Like I think it's up to us whether we want to continue doing that or not. And I'm a big proponent of not continuing it.
I think a bigger part of that is capitalism. Again, going back to that, is that toothpaste is already out of the tube. And so you have too many people who are making too much money based off of someone who looks like me not liking someone who looks like you, and vice versa. There's too much money to be made by creating a network that only feeds whatever type of visual material to that particular group, because they know that's what that particular group is craving, because they don't feel like they're getting this someplace else. And it just keeps spinning. That cycle just keeps spinning. I think there is too much money to be made to go back and do something different. I don't know if it was you or Knocko who said it. At the end of the day, it's about your own individual self, your own individual belief, and how you carry yourself. When I leave here, am I going to show love to someone who doesn't look like me, who may not be in the same economic system as I? That's the only thing I can control. I don't think we can ever get to a point where a large enough group of, let's say, the four of us who believe likewise can go out here and make that huge change. It is far, far, far too late for that. Far too late for that, in my humble opinion. To the point that you were making about Scandinavia, I understand what you were saying. A point that I was making was, you start speaking any part of that over here within these four walls,
Oh yeah.
And we saw it happen over the last year. The Republicans start screaming socialism, and
Right.
people who have no idea what socialism is start saying, "What socialism? Oh, what part of it?" And they don't know anything to do with socialism. They have nothing. They've never read the books that you've read, but they start screaming it from the mountaintop. So,
right, but there is that younger generation that, you know, it's like reminds me of that meme where the girl's at the Starbucks and she's got her Starbucks coffee and she's got the, you know, $2,000 Apple computer with a sticker on it that says "Smash Capitalism." And it's like, I think that's a lot of this younger generation is like, they're like, yeah, socialism, Bernie Sanders, but they don't really understand the history or what they're promoting. I don't know. Knocko, do you have any, you need a chance to talk. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's all good. I love listening. I like what Arno was saying about knowing yourself, you know, to thy own self be true. Knowing yourself and taking care of yourself, making yourself stronger, faster, smarter, kinder, a better person. And then on the flip side of that, doing that for somebody else. And, you know, and you could just move someone's the needle just a little bit by doing the smallest little things, completely changes the trajectory in someone's day. Just one kind act could turn someone's frown upside down, be corny, but it's really true. And I think we get obsessed with these big global ideas of I can't do this about this and our nation can't do that. It's like, start small. Just think about your block, your house, your apartment, one person that you meet on the street. You can make that change. It's very little, doesn't cost anything. So just start small, and everything else. If everyone just did one small thing every day, we could have that big sweeping movement. And don't worry about that big picture. Just control what's in your immediate sphere, what's in your wingspan. You know, start with yourself, then start with your family, start with your neighbor, start with the block, and then it becomes a movement like anything else, like the revolution that started this country. You know, it started off with one person and it spread. So
yeah, I know. It reminds me of that quote. Is it a Navy SEAL or somebody that said, like, if you want to change the world, start by making your bed?
correct.
Like, you know, start with your own shit, clean up your own mess first, and then you go out and help other people in the world. And I love how you guys you all want to help people. Sidney, you say you're all just in it for yourself. I don't believe you.
That's not what I said at all. You know what?
You said get your power and get your money. That's all that matters.
I have a question for Knocko real quick because I see you trying to wind down. I do have a question for Knocko if I can ask it. Hey, Knocko, how tall are you, sir?
6 foot.
6 foot, okay.
That was a nicer question than are you using Botox?
It was a real question, just like the Botox question. I wasn't trying to be mean. It was a real question. Knocko, I see Knocko, when you retire from the force, I see Knocko like up in the mountains with a major commune, and Knocko just walks around shirtless and just preaching the gospel. And
he's ripped. He does jujitsu.
Now, look, I'm not saying the man is. I don't know what he looks like underneath there. He could be ripped, he could be flabby, but he's gonna be shirtless and shoeless, walking around this commune and just preaching the gospel. And I'm not saying this as a pure joke. The dude, you know, whatever it is you have, it comes through the screen. The dude is a pure of heart, at least what I'm seeing here in this interview, and I believe what he's saying, that he believes in his heart. I'm just seeing this guy off leading a group of people. This is the way. Let's try to make a difference in the world, and just being that type of leader. I can see it after he retires from the force and just kind of, you know, puts his badge and his gun down and says, let's go. We're going to go out here, eat from the earth. We're going to throw the football around, and we're going to go out, and we're just going to try to do good and be good and change the world one piece at a time. Something that came to my mind when listening to him speak. So
yeah, no,
I'm not coming up there though, because I don't think you're going to have room for all my Nikes in my
I'll leave some spot in the cave for you. I'll look out. I'll let you live.
I love it.
Oh my God! You said cave. I'm not coming up there for sure.
I love it. No, I think you guys are all great. I love all of you. Thank you for doing this show. You know, like I said, I do want to make a difference in the world. That's what part of the reason I do this podcast, and I always end promoting a charity. You guys have all promoted charities on my show before. Sidney, are you still working with the AZ Bike Charity Week?
I've not done as much this year with my good friend Kevin Rode in Arizona Bike Week Charities, but it is an awesome opportunity every single year for anyone out there who wants to do something during Bike Week. They do some amazing things, putting on some charitable events. I know their big thing that they are always looking for help for. I know it just passed, but heck, we all know the older we get, the sooner it gets here. Christmas will be back here real soon. They're always looking for help for that, to go out and buy presents for needy kids, or kids and orphans. or I'm sorry, kids in orphanages, wrap them, deliver them, and all that type of thing. But great job that Kevin Rowe does over there for Arizona Bike Week Charities. Amazing.
Okay. And then Arno, you still do the Parents for Peace? Remind me again what that
Parents
is?
for Peace is my jam. People can find them at parentsforpeace.org with the number 4. Parents for Peace has a nationwide toll-free helpline as well as digital contact venues. If anyone is concerned about a loved one getting mixed up in any kind of violent extremism, whether it's white nationalism, it's a religious extremist, a political extremist, Antifa, we got a triage that helps address those issues and get those people back on the healthy track. We help individuals as well. A lot of times people are calling themselves like looking for help, and that's what we do. So parentsforpeace.org.
Cool. And then Knocko, are you still working with America's Mighty Warriors?
AmericasMightyWarriors.org. It's organization started by Mama Lee, the mother of Mark Lee, who you mentioned, a Navy SEAL. That was Admiral McRaven. Mark Lee was part of a Navy SEALs task unit bruiser and died in battle. And his mother is fighting the battle that for the veterans that are trying to get proper care. Everyone knows the VA is an imperfect system. So it's the money that she generates via AmericasMightyWarriors.org uses that money for alternative care for combat veterans of psychologically damaged or bodily damage, that type of thing that the VA won't approve. So check them out and throw down a few bucks. It'll make yourself feel good and it'll make someone else feel good at the same time. So dual purpose.
Okay, cool. Well, see, we can make the world better. We don't need the government. We don't need all that shit. We just do it ourselves. So thank you guys so much for doing this. I appreciate it. I'll get this episode out soon.
Been awesome, guys. Great to Knocko and Sidney. Great to meet you guys. Look forward to keeping in touch. And Chuck, thanks for making it all happen.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Same here, brothers. Great meeting you. Keep up the good work, everyone. Everyone has a purpose, and looking forward to seeing the rest of your work there, Chuck. Keep it up.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate you guys.
Knocko, Arno, thanks, guys.
Cheers.
All right. All right. Well, there's a lot to unpack there. Some very heavy stuff. A lot to think about. Hopefully you learned something or were able to see things from a different perspective, or at least you were able to laugh from some of that. As always with my goal with these podcasts, it's to entertain, educate, and inspire people. And I think this one also is going to make you think a little bit and shift your view of the world a little, hopefully in a good way. I want to thank Sidney, Knocko, and Arno for taking the time to come on the show. I really enjoyed their views and their opinions, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Again, make sure to support my guests by following them on social media, buying their books, going to their shows, listening to their podcasts. And of course, your likes, shares, and comments with this episode can help us all out a lot so that more people will see it and hear it. I appreciate all your support. Have a great rest of your day. Shoot for the moon.